Good day, everyone. Good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to another Microsoft Excel section. For this section, we're having a special guest by the name Crispo Mwangi. We'll be taking us on the topic Advanced Lookup Returning Multiple Items. So this session is brought to you by UrBizEdge. I'll just talk about the company UrBizEdge. So UrBizEdge is a registered Microsoft Excel consulting, financial modeling, business intelligence, data analysis, enterprise solution firm in Nigeria. We also specialize in helping companies and high-value professionals be on top of the business data. We're also the team and developer of some financial tools which you can find on Microsoft Office Store, such as the Nigerian Finance Marketing Analysis tool. We're also the developer of the Nigerian Stock Analysis Dashboard and so many other tools. As you all know, we're also a training company in Lagos, in Abuja, and also in Port Harcourt. So this is our calendar for upcoming training. So the 24th of November, we'll be having business intelligence and dashboard using Microsoft Power BI. For some of you that are interested in business intelligence, so this is the date. On the 1st of December, we'll be having in-depth Excel training, executive dashboard, and business data analysis using Excel. Also on the 1st of December, we're having big data analysis, Power Query, Power Pivot, and VBA. That's what people are into big data in Excel. So let's give a brief about our special guest, his profile. He's also a trainer and also a consultant. So he's a Microsoft certified trainer, also a Microsoft certified solution expert in data management and analytics. He's also a Microsoft certified solution associate in BI reporting, Microsoft certified office specialist also, Power Platform app maker and NITA accredited trainer with over 10 years worth of experience in creating data-driven solutions for various business problems. Is also passionate in helping organizations to manage their data assets and find the best and fastest way to get insight from the data. So without further ado, I want over the session to our special guest, Crispo. So I'll stop sharing my screen and go back. So over to you, Crispo.
Good evening, everyone. I have sent a workbook that will be sent on the chat because I believe in more of monkey see, monkey do, so that at least in everything that I'm doing, you will have an opportunity to work with me, and also you can try these functions. I want to start sharing my screen so that at least we can have a good session and also have enough time to go and watch World Cup. So let me share my screen, stop sharing my camera, and then share my screen. Can everybody see this?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So what we know is that lookup functions in Excel, their default settings is to return the first or the last, depending on which function you are using, either to return the first or the last item that meets the criteria. For example, if you want to do 𝗲𝗏𝗏 and you want to see which customers bought this product ID, you can just do 𝗲𝗏𝗏. Ask you for a lookup value, so you give it a lookup value, and then a table array, you give it a table array, and then you want the column that you want is the third column, because you have to count from 1, 2, 3. You say you want to return the third column, and and then since by default 𝗲𝗏𝗏 returns an approximate match, you have to give it a true. So it returns this first person. But in most environments, what the user needs is that you want to return all the customers that bought this kind of an item. So what you do is that you can't use the item ID. So the trick here is to ensure that you use the row numbers. In this data set, you need to use row number 6, fetch data in row number 6, row number 10, row number 14, row number 17. So this is the most important part, and I think we are going to repeat this over and over for the rest of these worksheets, so that at least you know the trick on how to fetch the data, fetch the row numbers, and then you can use those row numbers to fetch the customer name. So the first thing that you need to do, because we need to create a lookup value, which will be a row numbers, is first of all, you need to test which row numbers in this data set contain this product ID. So we are going to use the if function. You say if. So what's our logical test? You want where the product ID is equal to this product, this criteria, and then what you want to return, you want to return the row numbers. So you say row product ID, and then if it is false, just return blank. So you can see that in row number 6, row number 10, row number 14, and row number 17 is where we have the criteria being matched. So now you need to find a way. The next step, the next trick is to find a way where you can look through these row numbers one by one. You can either use the small function or the large function, but I like to use the small function so that we can get from the smallest row all the way. As we scroll down, you can be able to get up to the end. So you can come and say equals small. Small what? We want this array. And then I'm going to make it absolute. And then for k, we want from the smallest all the way to the biggest. So what you can do, you can just write 1, and then it will return for you 6. So as you scroll down, you can come and write 2 here. Then it will return for you 10. This is not the optimal way of doing it, because now you have to know how many numbers you are to write, and then you come trying to hard code all those numbers, hard coding your k. So the most optimal way of doing this is, instead of putting 1, you put the row function, and then you say from row A1 will return for you 1, and then as you scroll down, it will come to row A2, which will return to row A3 all the way until the end. So now when you scroll, it will return all the numbers. As you can see now, we are in row A4. So there are only 4 numbers. And after the small function has looped through all the rows, it will start giving out errors. I'll show you how to deal with these errors later. So the other thing that lookup wants, now we have the lookup value, we have a table array. What we need is, we have a lookup value, which will be 6, 10, 14, and 17, the row numbers in the data set where we meet the criteria. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to create a table array. As you know, Hlookup, what it does, that we need the first column to have the row numbers or a lookup value, and then the second column or the third column, we can have whatever we want to do, the return value. So how you create a lookup table, you use a choose function. So you come and say choose, then curly braces, you want a 2-column. You want a 2-column table. And the first value that you want is the row numbers, because this is what you are going to use for your lookup values. So you want the row numbers of this product ID. And then you want to return the customer names. So now you have everything that Hlookup wants. You have your lookup values, your multiple lookup values, and you have your lookup table with column 1 having the row numbers that you are going to loop through. So now, if you want to write everything together, you can come and say equals Hlookup small if the product ID is equal to the criteria, and I'm going to make it absolute. Then return the row numbers of the product IDs. So that's our array that is going to be fed in the small. And then for our K, we said instead of writing 1, 2, 3 all the way down, we can use the row function. So row A1. So now we are done with our lookup values. So these will be our lookup values. As you scroll down, it's going to look at 6, 10, 14, and 17. So the next thing that we need is the table array, which is this. Column number 1 should now have the row numbers because we are going to use the row numbers as our lookup values. And column number 2 should have our customer name. So we are going to use the choose function. Choose curly braces 1, 2. We want 2 columns, and what we need in the first column is the row of the product ID. And then we need the customer name. That's all for the table array. So the column that we want to return is this second column, which has the customer name. So we put 2. And then we want an exact match, so we put false. So now you can be able to scroll all the way down and you have your multiple items that matches all the customers that bought this product. As you can see, this 𝗏𝗏, glove, 𝗏𝗏𝗃, and match. Now, if you do not want to see these errors, because after lookup is done with getting all the matching rows to start spitting out errors, you can nest it inside 𝗏𝗏𝗃. So 𝗏𝗏𝗃, the Hlookup, and then you can come and say if you are done with getting the correct number of rows, spit out blank. So that's it. So let me show you in the advanced editor. So this is everything that will be that I'm going to repeat in the whole of this presentation. If you didn't get it here, I hope you are going to get it later on because there's nothing new in the next in the many other worksheets. It's only a small tweak here and there. But what you need to understand is for you to return multiple items in a lookup, you need to use the row numbers. You can't use the criteria itself because the criteria itself is going to return the first item and that's it. You need to know in this data set where are the row numbers that this criteria is contained. And what you do, you use the if function. So this part checks in the data set where that criteria is met. And if it is true, it returns the row number. Yeah. And then you use the small function to look through all these row numbers one at a time. So this is the, if you scroll down, as you can see, as you scroll down, you move from A1, you move to A2. So now small function is returning 6, 10, 14, 17, and all that. The other small trick is the table array. Now that you don't have the row numbers here, you need to create the row numbers. You need to create a table with row numbers as the first column and the customer name as the second column. So what you do, you use the choose function. You just choose, I want a 2-column table. In column number 1, I want the row numbers, and in column number 2, I want the customer name. And then Hlookup to return the second column, and then it should be exact. And that is like the major thing that you need to understand for you to make any lookup function. And we are going to see that in the rest of the worksheets. For you to return, you need to use the row numbers, and then you need to use the small function to look through the row numbers, and then you create your lookup table all the way to the end. Yeah. Any question before we move on, maybe? Okay. I'm going to give the second.
If you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box. If you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box.
So what we are going to do, we are going to go through the second example, hoping that's going to make sense. By the time we are done with like the 10 examples that I have, it's going to make sense. So it's the same concept, but now what if you want not only to return the multiple rows, but you want to return multiple columns? For example, in the next example, we not only want to return the customer who bought this product ID, the product with this ID, but we want to return the order dates. So now, what you need to do, the first thing that you need to do for that to work, remember your table array in this example had only 2 columns. If you want to return more than 2 columns, you need to adjust the table array to include the other column that you need to fetch. So what you need is you need to use shoes, but now when you are using the shoes and you want to create a table array, you need to create a 3 column table array. So what you do, you say shoes 1, 2, 3. Column number 1, obviously, because now we are using Hlookup, always check the first column for the lookup values. So return the row of the product ID. So the second column that you need is the customer, because you see you need the customer and then you need the order date. So the customer, and then the third column that you need is the order date. Let me see. So numbers, product. Oh, sorry, these are. So shoes 1, 2, 3, the row number, customer, and the order date. Let me repeat this again. Shoes, curly braces 1, 2, 3. Then what I need is the row number for the product ID. And I need the customer, and I need the order date. Yeah. Now, this is what we are going to use now in your table array if you want to return more than two columns using Hlookup. So the other small adjustment that you need is that when you are doing the column index in Hlookup, you need to say that you need the two columns, column number 2 and column number 3. So let's write it all over again. So Hlookup. What is our lookup values? We want our lookup values to be the row numbers, and we want to look through those row numbers one by one. So we are going to use small, and actually this time instead of using small, we can use large, so that we can start looking up from the largest all the way to the biggest. So we can say large. Large of what? Now these row numbers, we should be returned using the if function. If the product ID is equal to this product ID, you make it absolute, then return the row numbers of this product ID. That's it for the array part of large. So the same thing for our K, we are going to use the row values, so that when you scroll down, it can check it. Row A1, A2, all the way until we are done with our rows. So we done with the lookup value. So the next thing we need to do is that we need to get our table array, and we said our table array we are going to use the choose function to return 3-column table. The first column being the row numbers, then the customer name, and then the dates. So we say choose of what? We need a 3-column table. The first column table being the row number. First column being the row numbers. The second column being the customer, and then the third column being the dates. So you're done with your table array. So the next thing that you need to create is you need the column index. So this is another trick that you need to use. Instead of writing 2, because that will return only the second column, you can return more than 2. So what you do, you use the curly braces. You say, I want to return the second and the third columns. And then I want everything to be exact. And that's it. So since we are using the large function instead of the small function, we have started from down up. So we are going to return row number 17, row number 14, row number 10, row number 6, until we are done. So that's it. And as I said, you can use the 𝗵𝐴𝐿𝐴 if you don't want to see these errors. You can use 𝗵𝐴𝐿𝐴. So I want to show you how that looks like in advanced edit. So large, because we want to start from the bottom, from the last to the first, and then if this checks our data set and returns the row numbers where this criteria is met, now creates our table array, 3-column table that has the column number 1, it has the row numbers, the column number 2 has the dates, column number 3 has, the column number 2 has the name, column number 3 has the date. And then in our column index, we want to return the second column and the last column. If you have 4 or 5 columns, you can do that. So this is especially for people who do not have Office 365. And when you get to Office 365 and you have things like filter and the rest, you don't need to do this. But for the rest of us who don't have who do not have Office 365, you may need to run about this. Any question? Let me check. Guess there's no question so far. So the other thing that you need to learn about lookup functions is that on default they are not case sensitive. That is to say that if you want to, if you have different, let's say the furniture that is not uppercase, that is sentence case, and the furniture that is uppercase is 2 different items, and you want to return only the suppliers who sold for you this uppercase. If you try to use 𝗵𝗵𝐿ookup, and I'm going to show you, it doesn't differentiate between a sentence case and an uppercase. So you want to return our lookup value is this furniture, and we want in this. So now you have to select from that. And remember, again, the other thing that you need to understand about 𝗵𝗵𝐿ookup is that it doesn't look up to the left. So now I can select this table like this because you see the first column is the supplier. So I have to select product, cost, and sales so that we have this product as the first column. Then I want to return the second. Let's say I want to return the cost codes. I want to be exact. What you see, it returns this 111BN017, which is this, because it doesn't differentiate between this furniture and this furniture. But what you actually told it is that return the cost code where the furniture is capped. So the only way to make lookup functions to be sensitive is to use the exact or the find function. These are the case sensitive functions that we have in Excel, exact and find. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to know where do you have the exact of these criteria. So you create your lookup. To create your lookup value, you need to come and say, number one, exact. And you can see it tells you that it's case sensitive. So you want to check this furniture in this product ID, and it should be exact. As you can see now, in the second, it tells you that this furniture and this furniture is not the same. That's why it's false. And this one is true. Yeah. So now, now that you have this logical test, all you need to do is to feed it inside if, say if it is true that this furniture is exactly the same that is in this product category, then return the same thing that we are doing, return the row number, otherwise return blank. You see, now at least we can be able to check that the first furniture that is uppercase is in column, is in row number 6, and then row number 8, and then row number 14. Yeah. So from there, you use the same thing. The second step is you use the small function. And I don't want to repeat this, so that's why I'm moving a bit fast. You feed these rows inside small. So if now feed the row so that you can be able to look through these values one by one. So to check 8, 6, 8, 14, and then the same thing for creating our table array. So like I said from the first, if you didn't understand that from the first worksheet, it's the same thing that we are going to repeat until the end, so that at least you get it. I don't know of any other way that lookup functions can return multiple values other than this. That's why I'm repeating it over and over again. So now, this is the whole this now is the full function. Hlookup, what's your lookup value? Is the row numbers that are exact. This furniture should be exact to the furniture that you're checking here in the product category. Then you return the row numbers. Then you use the small function to look through those row numbers. And then now, since your row numbers are the lookup value, you need to create a table array. Column number 1 to be the row numbers, and column number 2 to be the supplier name that you want to return. So if you do that and you scroll, it will give you the person who bought these furniture cups is Carlos and Erica and Bai. So the other situation that you may find yourself is you want to check 𝗏𝗁. you want to check a cost in this cost code. You want to see which suppliers have their cost code as PO lowercase and not PO uppercase. And as I told you, lookup functions do not differentiate between, on default, do not differentiate between the uppercase and the lowercase. So the only way to do that is to use the find function. So your lookup value this time will be find. And as you can see, find tells you that it's case sensitive. So what are you finding? You want to find this PO inside this cost code. What find does is that it returns the possession of that PO, and if it doesn't find this lowercase PO, it returns the value. Yeah. So you can't use it. You can't use this as a logical test inside if, because remember what we at the end of the day we want the raw numbers where this PO is contained. What you do is that you need to convert this into a logical test of true and falses. So the only way to convert this into true and falses is to use the is number. Because if there's a number, it will return true, and if there's not a number, it will return false. Yeah, so is number, it tells you that this is true, this is true, this is true, this is false. So now you can use this inside the if function to return for you the raw number. So you say if, now this logical test has the true and falses. If it is true, what you want to do is that you want to return the raw number. Otherwise, return blank. So row number 3, row number 7, and row number 10, and row number 13 is where we have this lowercase PO. So now when you combine everything, this is how it looks like. So lookup again, what do you want to return? What's your lookup value? The raw numbers that contains this lowercase PO. And the way to look for the lowercase PO is to use the find. And now find returns the possession of this PO. So what you need to do again, it returns the possession and it also returns the errors. So what you need to do is to use the is number so that you can convert the numbers and the errors into true and falses. Then you return the raw number, and then you use row A1 as the K inside small, where you are going to loop through these row numbers one by one. Choose is the same that we have used through all these other worksheets. Return the table, return two column table, number 1 being the row numbers and number 2 being the supply. And then if you scroll down, it's going to return all these names. Yeah. So that's how you make a lookup functions to be case sensitive. So if there are no questions, and let's move on. So now, if you understand what makes this method strong or very, very powerful is that you can use if. You can use the if logical test for almost anything. So for example, what we are going to see is, let's say you want to return the top items. Yeah, all these are the sales, and you want to return the customers the top 3 customers based on the sales. Yeah, what you need to do again is the same thing. The trick is usually in the lookup value. And again, what we say that we want in our lookup value, we want to return the raw numbers, and we want to return the raw numbers where the sales are the top 3. So how do you check if the sales are the top 3? You use large. Large returns the K largest. First of all, you need to know what is the large largest sales that we have. So this will be now our criteria. So that largest we have is this 11,108. Yeah. So now we want to check how many of these sales are greater or equal to the 11,008. So what you do is that you come and say you want the sales that are greater or equal to the largest sales value. So this is true, and this is true. Yeah. So you want to, if you don't want to include this one, then you can say just greater than. But now that would be like the top 2. But if you want to the top 3, you need to include that value. Yeah. So now again, this is a logical test, and now all you need to do is to feed that inside if, and you say return to us the raw numbers. If it is false, you can return the blank. So it tells you row number 3, row number 10, and row number 26 is where you have the third largest sales. So with this now, the same thing we have done since the first sheet is you can use this look up the customer names. So small, if you want to go to look through, use small. The essence of small is just to help you look through these row numbers one by one. So your K is row A1. As you scroll down, A1 becomes A2, so it returns the second as smallest, and then the third smallest. Yeah. And then you can the same thing, create a table array, and then you can combine all that inside 𝗲𝗏lookup. 𝗲𝗏lookup. So what do you want? Your lookup value should be the sales that are greater or equal to the largest sale. Return the row numbers, otherwise return blank, and then use small to look through all these row numbers one by one, and then check the row numbers in this table that you have created. Check them in the column number 1, and then return the name. Any question? Is it confusing? Okay. So other than 𝗲𝗏lookup, I think, although I don't know how many people still use 𝗏𝗏lookup, but everything that you have heard about 𝗲𝗏lookup, when it comes to 𝗏𝗏lookup now, try to think of it in terms of columns instead of rows. What 𝗏𝗏lookup does, it looks up at the topmost row. That's where your lookup value should have, and then it returns any other row that is below it. Yeah. For example, you have this data for suppliers, and there are different items that they did the quote, and you have the suppliers, and every supplier did their quote. And what you want to do is that you want to find which supplier quoted the least. Yeah. So how do you find the supplier that quoted the least? Is that you need to find the minimum of all these. So your lookup value should be the column numbers where you have the minimum. For example, for the bookcases, you have 𝗍𝗵 and 𝗕𝗫𝐵 who have quoted the minimum. How do you create this lookup value? Come and say if this column, and you want to find the minimum, so you use the min function, the minimum of this data. So now, what you want to return is not the rows. Again, you want to return the column. So you use the column function to say column, else you return blank. So it tells you that column number 3 and column number 7, which is actually true, number 3 and number 7 is where we have the minimum. Yeah, so that's our lookup value. So that's the first trick if you're ever going to use Hlookup, is that instead of creating your lookup value like this using rows, you need to use columns now. That is one thing that differentiates Hlookup and VLOOKUP. So the other thing that differentiates Hlookup and VLOOKUP is you need to create a two-row table array. So what we are doing here, we are creating a two-column table array. So how do you create a two-row table array? You use the same thing, choose curly braces 1. So this is where the trick is. Instead of using a comma, you use a semicolon rows. So I want to see a two-row table array. So what's the first row? The first row should contain the column numbers. Because we are using the column numbers as our lookup value. So the column numbers. So the second value would be, we want to return the supplier's name. So you create just press on the headers, and that's what it will return to you. A two-row table array. Row number 1, which have the column numbers, and since we are using lookup values as our column numbers, and then number 2 should be the name of the suppliers. Yeah. When you put everything together, let me show you so that. You say Hlookup. What do you want what's your lookup value? You want to use the column numbers. What column numbers is the column numbers where you have the minimum, and this is what as you see this function. Yeah. So this gives us the column numbers where you have the minimum of the quoted of the quotes. So again, use small to return from the smallest to the largest. So the other difference between Hlookup and VLOOKUP is that when you are creating your lookup, your table array, it needs to have 2 columns. And how you create a column is instead of using a comma, you use a semicolon. And you want the first column. Let me show you. So you want your table array to have 2 columns. The first 2 rows. Sorry, 2 rows. The first row should have the column numbers, and the second one should have whatever you want to return, and we want to return the supplier names. And the rest is that now you use a small loop through one column after another, and then return for you the header, and that's it. So I've just used 𝗵𝐴𝐿𝑎 to ensure that you don't have errors. So if, for example, instead of mat, let's say in art you see is mat did 125 and also 100 did 125. What if you also have Emily put 125? As you can see, we have now Sandra, Emily, and Matt. And you can scroll up to the end, depending on how many suppliers you have. Here, I'm just limiting myself to 2. And so for the appliances, it's only Sandra who quoted the list, which was 2,500. So if Tracy came back and said, I also want to quote 25, then you have Tracy. So this is automatic, and you don't have to keep on checking who quoted what, where. You just need to have your Hlookup returning multiples. So that's it with 𝗲𝗏𝗃 and Hlookup. So we get into index and match. This is far much better than the first 2. So we are moving from the worst to the best. And the only difference between index and match is that when you are doing your lookup values, you need to adjust for the handler. So what index does is that instead of, if you can look at 𝗲𝗏𝗃 is using these column numbers. So this is column number 6, and it has returned whatever that is there. Sorry, row number 6, and it has returned whatever is there in row number 6. So for index, it starts counting the row numbers from the header of the data set. So if you say for example, if you are going to use the same thing and you say you want to index, let me show you. Let's say I want to index. I want to return the customer name. And I want to return where all this is the row numbers that are not adjusted. Don't worry about the errors for now, but you can see it's returning Howard because Howard is number 6 instead of returning Brosina, row number 4. So what you need to do, the only trick that you need to do when you are using index and match is that you need to adjust these lookup values, these rows numbers from the header. So you say that is okay. So instead of these row numbers now, you need to come here and say minus the row number, which is here in the header. And that's it. So now, Brosina is in row number 4, row number 8, row number 12, row number 15. So if you do that in index, so index is straightforward and easy to use instead of using the list. So index return the customer name, in which rows, the rows that have been adjusted where the product ID is equal to the criteria, and then you get the row numbers, and then you minus the handler row so that you can be able to standardize them and then return one row after another. So that's all about index. It's the same thing that we are returning, that we are doing, but all you need to do is that when you're working with index and match, you need to adjust rows to start counting from the header. What if you want to return, what if you have a multiple criteria? Now, instead of just the product ID, you have the product ID and the year. So you have these items are bought in different years, and all you are concerned with is that you want anything that was bought in the year 2020. So now what you have here is multiple criteria. So what you do is that you want the product ID and the year 2020. So you need to test your first criteria, which is the year, and then you can return the year part of a date. You can just use the function year or the date. So that will return to you only the year part of the date. And now with this, you can be able to check against that criteria. And then it will tell you only that and this is where the year is true. Yeah, the year part is the year 2020. Yeah, or in this past one, but now we are going to use another criteria. So for the year 2020, we have that true, we have this true also. These ones, okay, and then that one. But what we need now is we don't need anything that was bought in the year 2020. We want this product ID. So again, you need to check for your second criteria, which is the product ID should be equal to that. You only want to see where you have two true. So the only place you have two true is row number 4 and the last one. So how do you combine these two? Since this is an add logic, what you can say is trying to move as fast as possible. I can see I only have 10 minutes. So if the first project, which is the product, is equal to F3, so when you're using the AND, you use an asterisk, and the year of the date is equal to F4, which is this 2020. If those two are true, yeah, return the row number. As you can see, it's only row number 4 and row number 15 that have been adjusted to the header. So if you do that inside the index, so index return the customer, and then where the year is equal to F4, and this is the only trick that you need to understand, that you can use the asterisk. If you are using all, you can use a plus. If you are using XOR, you can use a minus. And then you return the row numbers, and then you adjust them against the head. And then when you scroll down, it's going to return only those two. When you get this workbook, you can go and try to test on different areas using the same logic that I'm trying to explain. So I think that's it about index. There's a lot we can talk about index, but we don't have time. Xlookup was overhyped when it was introduced in Office 365. But what I've come to realize about it is it's not that, okay, it's an improved part of Lookup, because what Xlookup wants is a lookup value. And by now we know how to get a lookup value. We are going to use row numbers. Yeah. Your lookup array is now the row numbers, all the row numbers that are for the product. Yeah. So instead of using the table array, now you can just come and say you want your row numbers, and then what you want to return is the customer name. So Xlookup, again, the same trick that we have used since the start of this webinar. Return what's your lookup value, where the product ID is the same, return the product. So for the Xlookup, you don't need to adjust like the index and match. It uses the same concept as Hlookup and Xlookup. Return the row number, and then what's your lookup array is the row numbers. Remember what we are doing for the Hlookup is we are creating a column with the row numbers and the customer name, but here we can separate the row numbers as a lookup array, and the return array, which was column number 2 in the Hlookup, is our return array. And that's all about it when you want to use Hlookup to return multiple items. So now the other thing is that what if you want to use Xlookup, and I don't know why you would want to use Xlookup to return multiple columns when you have Hlookup, but what if you want to have Xlookup return multiple columns? Now you want to use, you want to return the customer name and you want to return the order dates. So the only trick here is that for Xlookup, in your return array, you need to use the choose function. Yeah, you want to come. Remember what we have done here is that for a return array, we only have returned only one column, the customer name. But if you want to return more than one column, you have to use the choose function. You come and say choose two columns, which is the customers and the order date. So if you put everything together, this is how it looks like. So Xlookup, small, we know that as our lookup value, our lookup array. So this is the return array. Now you want to return two columns, which is the customer name and the order date. So that's how you make Xlookup to return multiple columns and multiple rows. So now we come to my all-time favorite, and I think this is the most powerful lookup function I've ever come across, filter. And then the beauty about filter is that it's easy to use. You don't need to do all these beating of lookup value, lookup, looping through, creating table arrays and all that. For filter, it's very simple. You just come and say filter, and it asks you, what do you want me to return? I want to return customers. Or what do you want me to include? In the include, think of the include as a logical test, where what is true, where when you find where the product ID is equal to this product ID. This is our criteria product ID. And that's all that you need to do. And then it will return that. So if you are not using filter and you have Office 365, you're missing a lot. Yeah. So if you want to change and you want to see, I don't know whether there's another thing that is returned. You want to see who bought this, just come and paste it. It's only clear. What if somebody like Ken bought it? It populates for you. You don't need to use 𝗵𝗴𝗏. You don't need to use all those other things. Yeah. And the beauty about filter, again, if you wanted to return multiple columns, it's the same thing. You just need to highlight the columns that you wanted to return. So filter, what do you want to return? I want to return the order date and I want to return the customer name. The same thing, what do you want to include? You want to include where the product ID is equal to this product ID. And that's it. So if you want to use that, so now you have your order dates and you have your customer numbers. Filter for me is one of the best lookup functions that we have. If you want to automate your data, you don't want your users to be using all these functions, you can use the last one. We can only have 2 minutes per query. So for per query, what you need to do, you need to follow these steps. So the first step that you need to do, you need to have your criteria, and then you need to come and load your criteria into per query. So you come to data from table. And then you have your criteria. So you can load two as a connection, because you want to use that as a connection. And then you come, you load your sales table. Yeah. So now you have your sales table and you have your criteria. So this is the only trick when you're using per query, is that you need to convert this into a single value. And how you convert this table into a single value, you just need to right click and you drill down. Yeah, so that's trick number one. So trick number two is that when you come to your sales table, you can come here and say, I want to filter by, you can select anything. I want to filter by the first product ID. So now that will filter by the product ID. But now, since you don't want to be changing this every time, you want here in the after each, you want this to be referring to this criteria on the table. So you come and delete that and include your criteria. So now with that, what you can do now after that is that you want to remove this product ID, or you want to remove all that. Maybe you want to just be returning the customer. So you can remove rows, remove columns, remove other columns. So because you just want to be seeing the customers, so remove other columns. And then now you load this. You can come and load it here. Just right click and load to. Let me delete this. So right click and load to. Load to as a table, and then load into an existing worksheet, and you can select where you want to load it to, and that's it. So now if you want to change and you want to see, for example, all these people, you come and say, just change the product ID, and then you come to data, and then you refresh. So it brings back all the items that matches this criteria. This is a good option if you have users who do not want to get involved into functions. You can create this as a way of automating your lookup. And I think my time is up. It's 7:02, and I'm done. Thank you.
Awesome.
I hope I didn't talk too fast, and maybe somebody missed something somewhere.
No, it was perfect. I followed all through. It was actually perfect. It was perfect. So if you have any question, you can drop it in the chat box below. So any question, please drop it in the chat box below. Also, amazing. I just when it comes to multiple output, I just prefer using the filter function. I don't like stressing myself with the whole VLOOKUP and mixing too many formula. When filter came out, it was like it was God sent to me.
Yeah, filter was a lifesaver for a lot of people. But what I've come to realize is that not every person has an access to Office 365 and filter. There are so people who are still using the 𝗏𝗏 and the Xlookup. So I think we need to be concerned about them also.
Yes. Okay, so if no question is coming in, so the last two questions I told you about was, you tell our audience how you started your old data journey, and also what advice for people just starting out in the data field, like what advice can you give them?
I think I started my journey around 15 or so years ago. And actually I started with the Lookup. That's why I like looking up. So I was given a huge data set, and I was supposed to compare with another huge data set. So what I did, to begin with, I did like many novice people. I printed the two, and I was checking one by one and ticking, and it was taking me too much time. And then I learned about index and match, and then I think index and match was like an eye-opener for me. I knew that I can just scroll down, and then it increases my accuracy and also saves time. And from then it has been all good. So from then I started learning about Power Query, other functions, and then I just fell in love with Excel. I think from there on.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So, okay, what advice have people just starting out in the field of data?
Number one, my first advice is that you have to hate manual work. If you don't, like for me, the reason why I think I got into all this learning about this function is that I just hate manual work. I just hate doing things one by one. And then you know that when you are doing it manually, you are going to make a lot of mistakes, and your accuracy at the end of the day, you get tired. So hate manual work, number one, if you want to get better in data. And then number two, do not be afraid to make mistakes. Do not be afraid to make mistakes. Try as much as possible. When you get this workbook, I hope you have shared the workbook on the chat. When you get the work,
I've shared it.
Yeah, when you get the workbook, do as many trials as possible. And then I think the third one is that do not be afraid to look stupid. Ask as many questions as possible. It's okay to look stupid. It's bad to be stupid. So those are two different things.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I want to say thank you very much. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. This was more like an eye opener. I tend to shy away when it comes to doing mixing so many formulas together. I prefer just using the filter, but I think I will still try this again. So I'll definitely try all of this again. So awesome, awesome. So let me just
actually that thing, I think the fourth thing is that do not be afraid of nesting functions. As long as you know how to break it down, do not be afraid of nesting functions. What I've come to realize in Excel is that one is never enough. So you need to nest, and if you're going to nest 20 or so, then with the lambda and the let, now you can be able to nest as many functions as possible. Just do it manually at the end of the day.
Awesome, that's true. That's true. With the whole lambda and let's just make life very easier for everyone. Okay, so we'll have another section in the next 1 hour for Power BI. So I'll just share my screen. So I'll tell you about it. Okay. So for some of you that might be interested, we're having in the next 1 hour, we're having another section for Power BI for teams and visualizing dataverse. So for any of you that will be interested, I'll put it in the chat box and you can join. It's going to be the next 1 hour. So let me just stop sharing my screen and thank everyone. Thank everyone for coming. Thank everyone for coming. So I'll paste the link to the next meeting. Thank everyone for coming. Also, thank you very much. So everyone, thank you and do have a lovely week ahead. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.